Today we're talking about two very overlooked and underused common puffballs that I know I have overlooked for many years, but they actually have a better texture than the larger puffballs. First things first, there's some lookalikes. Don't eat amanita eggs or earth balls. Stinkhorn eggs are technically edible, but kind of like eating something out of a horror movie. More information on those on my site, and I break them all down by species. So the first mushroom we'll go over is Apioperdon Pyriforme I. Used to be Lycoperdon Pyriforme I until the name was changed. You can see they are just kind of like oozing out of the ground. They kind of look like a loaf of challah or braided bread. And these are growing out of wood chips. They also grow on stumps and downed logs. There's my buddy Lorenzo. We found these before the Harvest Festival. So one thing that really confused me is in the same place, this is the same place I was picking the other ones. In the fall, I would see very large, comparatively speaking, larger puffballs growing in the same spot. And after reading a passage in the Bassett's Mushroom Guide, they are the only one that called out that this mushroom can have a giant fall variation. And one thing that confused me, I thought they were going to be Lycoperdon perlatum, which is the other puffball I'll talk about, is that there's spines on the cap there. And those are present on the smaller ones too. They're just not as pronounced. It seems to be something that happens when the mushrooms are in this kind of larger form, is these little spines on the cap that will slough off. Now, when we are cutting puffballs to see if they are good to eat, we always make sure that they are perfect, chalk white on the inside, and that there is no discoloration at all. So if there's any yellow or green, we're going to throw that away. That could be bitter, not taste good, be soft or gross or filled with bugs. But these are actually much better on the bug spectrum. They have a much better resistance to fungal gnat larvae than other ones. Now, Lycoperdon perlatum, this is the second one. Common puffball, devil's snuff box, gem-studded puffball. They have lots of names. This is about, 15 feet from where I picked the other ones, but it's just a year before, because I've been saving up my videos until I was ready and I had stuff on both species. I'm going to cut one open, make sure it's nice and white. We'll just pick the whole clump up. You can see these have kind of like a nipple on the cap, and they're slightly more white and slightly larger than the other species, but they can grow side by side. Again, making sure that the puffball is pure white. I'll cut one open to check before I harvest. Now, for cleaning, well, what I'm going to show you here is the spines that are a really great way to identify this species. They're more white than the other ones, slightly more larger, and I'm going to slow this down. The spines break off the cap, and they're going to be all over the place. You can see those spines fall off. So as you're cleaning these, if there's stuff rubbing off on everything, you probably have Lycoperdon perlatum. Now for cleaning, it makes me uneasy seeing so much dirt in a box, so I will say that typically I harvest puffballs and I clean and trim them in the field, but I wanted to get some different images with the white rhizomorphs attached because they come up with a lot of substrate when you pick up the whole clusters. But typically I'm going to clean them in the field. One nice thing that I found was that these really don't soak up water, so you can just soak them. And they clean like a dream. The skin kind of protects them and it repels debris. So give them a little soak in water, trim any dirty ends. These were much easier to clean than I thought they would be. Now, this is the best tip I have. After cooking like 5 pounds of these in a week and a half, I learned that I really like to par cook them before I add them to recipes. We want to get a lot of moisture out of these puffballs, and they're going to lose about 70%, 75% of their weight after we par roast them. I've added some crushed garlic, thyme, and rosemary to this one, along with salt and oil. Again, the recipe is on my website, described in text form, but we're just going to roast them until they're kind of nice and crisp in a moderately hot oven, and then we're going to cook them again. So then I'm going to have a few ideas for recipes here. I'm going to make a curry here in this first snippet. So I just add those par-cooked puffballs, just an example of how you might use them. We're going to fry them in some oil to really just get as much moisture as possible out of those mushrooms and really deepen their flavor. Puffballs love to be browned. If they're not, they can be flaccid and kind of soft, and they will turn people off. So I'm going to brown those mushrooms. Then I'm going to add some potatoes. We're going to make kind of like a butter chicken here, mushroom and potato curry. Add our curry. Boom. There you go. Super good. And that one was vegetarian. Next, browning without baking. This is a technique you can use with the larger fall versions or with larger puffballs. We're not going to dry saute these because they get burned. We're going to add a little bit of liquid, and then we're just going to cook the mushrooms until they wilt and all of their liquid has come out. I'm not going to cook the liquid down in the pan because that could burn. I just want to wilt them, and then I'm actually just going to drain it off. You could add the liquid to a soup, you could drink it, you could throw it away. I just toss it and thank it for its service. Then now we're going to brown the mushrooms. I should probably pat them dry on a paper towel there too. Add some oil to the pan, and now we will brown them. They might stick a little bit. Move them to the side of the pan. Add a little bit of extra oil if you need to. But this is a great way to, really cook them down and caramelize them. And after you do that, you can make things like sweet and sour puffballs. So I'm just going to dredge them in cornmeal after I've fried them a little bit. You can do this from raw too, but it's not quite as good. Toss them in a sweet and sour sauce. Recipes on my site. So good. I have a number of simple mushroom pastas on my site. Here's an example of how I'm going to add them to simple spaghetti with tomato sauce. I have some bacon I've cooked down, well, it's actually homemade pancetta. I'm going to add the mushrooms, but again, you see we are cooking the mushrooms a second time before we proceed with the recipe. Now I'm adding some tomato sauce that I've really cooked down and is nice and thick. And they are going to keep a surprising amount of texture. Add some cooked pasta, little cheese, basil. I have the heat turned off at this point and just mix that all together. But you get the idea here. It's not rocket appliances. Just cook the mushrooms, roast them, and then cook them again gently before you add them to a dish. Like all pastas, twist the noodles, put the goodies on top, boom, 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 little cheese on top, and that looks pretty darn good. It was great, actually. Next, you can puree them in soup. And I roast them before I do this too, because you're going to get a better flavor. So there's a recipe for roasted garlic and puffball soup on my website. So good. Tempura is another great thing. I will do this from raw sometimes and just put them in tempura batter, fry them up. I like to add kabocha squash to that for contrast. You can cook them in chili sauce too for tacos. That's a great way to kind of get around the texture. Slip them into a taco after you cook them in spicy sauce. It's so good. Everyone will like those. More information and all the recipes are described at the post at the top of the video description, link to my website. Thanks for watching.